Welcome back, chat. It's Wednesday, March 13th. Thank you for joining us for Wisecrack Live. Producer Henry here saying don't forget to like the stream as you come on in, settle in, and get ready for Dr. Michael. We'll be with you in just a moment. Oh, sorry to hear about the case of the Wednesdays uncivilized games. What are symptoms of the Wednesdays, I wonder? I know Wednesday is traditionally hump day, but I don't know how that manifests in the form that is a virus that you can sometimes be infected with. Please let me know. What are symptoms of the Wednesdays? Welcome, Beatmaster. Welcome, Dare Johnson. Thanks for joining us, MK Ultra. I always love saying MK Ultra. Good morning, Daniel. Thank you for joining us. Oh, thanks, Tiana and Paul, and welcome, Sig. Hey, Eddie. I'll take that into consideration, Penny. Hello and welcome. Sensational Sedalian, John Halloran, Rob, and Porkins. Can I get everyone as they arrive? Let's see. Chris Maverick in the chat with the Leroy Jenkins. Oh man, happy Wednesday. Happy to see ya. And Peace, and Fekro, and John Holleran. Good afternoon, Zachary. Hello, Julia. Hello, Andres. Hello, Joshua. For those just making it, I was asking earlier what would symptoms of the Wednesdays be. We weren't available to treat everybody's case of the Mondays, so it seems to have evolved into a case of the Wednesdays. I need to know, what are people feeling in regards to that? Oh no, Bardock, he's not living rent-free in his head. He's working at making us content that gets us views. Paul, you drink blue Powerade for your Wednesdays, and the blue water restores your life, and your name is Paul. This is a joke, right? Right there with you, James. Although I did get good news from my landlord that I don't move, I don't believe I will be facing a rent raise. I hope everybody else can be in such good graces this Wednesday. Really helps you ride the worm. And just before we get started, I want to remind everybody that watching on the clock does enhance the effects of the healing properties of Wisecrack Live. Mike will be with us in just a moment.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Wisecrack Live. Shout out to everyone in Detroit because it's March 13th, which is 313, which I'm pretty sure is the area code for Detroit. And I think I know that like everyone else because of the movie 8 Mile. What a picture! What a picture! So today's entire stream is going to be focused on 8 Mile, 8 Mile trivia, rap battling, Eminem
Boy,
trivia,
are my
Detroit
arms
trivia.
sweaty.
Yeah, talk about mom's spaghetti and things of that nature. I hope everyone's doing good today. I'm currently having a bit of a head cold. I have a head cold today. 212. Oh, is it 212? Isn't 212 New York? Isn't that New York? Somewhere in New York. But good to see everyone. It's been a wild week in, Wisecrack land. It's been a wild week in the land of our parent company. There was, this was just in the news, so I feel like I can just say this. I mean, the news, it was on some stuff, but yeah, I had a pretty heavy round of layoffs last week at our parent company, so it's been a little stressful. That's why we weren't here on Monday. We're still kind of picking up the pieces and figuring it all out. Stressful, it has me feeling a little bit depressed, and it's ironic too because last week on the stream we talked about the media industry collapsing and layoffs and alternative business models and all this sort of stuff, and well, it came and it hit hard. So that's been going on. Thanks for checking out the Jordan Peterson video that came out on Friday. It was an iffy one. There's elements of the video that I like a lot. There's things that I think we could have done, that I could have done a better job on in terms of depth. There was just so much going on there, but there's some leftovers. So we're going to talk about it some more today. You could say you're cleaning out your closet. The Eminem puns keep going in the chat. So there we go. It was 212 DC. We're all talking about area codes. Shout out your area code, friends, in the chat. I don't know. We'll see who has the best area code. It's weird that this ever happened to any of you guys where you get a phone when you're a teenager, maybe your parents help you get it, and it has an area code, and then you move someplace else, and then you get older and you still have an area code attached to a place you haven't been in a while. Like my area code is attached to a place I've not lived in 21 years. But there you go. But we got 309, 414, 32. We had multiple 414s. Oh yeah, 414 is the Milwaukee area. To Eddie and John, I was at a wedding over the weekend and I sat next to a guy from Milwaukee, and we just talked about Milwaukee the whole time and why I should live there. And I was like, oh, some of my stream buddies are from Milwaukee. Someone said their area code is 4. 775 403 587 253 412 347 713 505 347. We're getting international here, 330 214. Oh, we got a lot. I'll put the one on my phone is 407. And we got 406, 907. So much, guys. But yeah, glad to see everyone today. Later in the show, We're going to end today with a couple of guests from a new podcast that my colleague at Wisecrack, Amanda Shirker, our head of editorial, created, called Scumbags of History. So we're going to have the host, Brittany and Mateen, from that podcast come by and talk to us about what they're doing. The general gist of that podcast is that they look at historical figures who we might think are good, but are actually fat pieces of shite. So there you go. Um, we got the Patreon thing there. Thank you so much to everyone. We've had a nice bump in Patreon signups recently. I hope you know how much that helps us. I always feel a little desperate when I'm asking you guys for that sort of stuff. Let's see. Okay. But yeah, so if you haven't checked it out yet, you can check out our Patreon. Penny, I'm not sure how different it is. I think it's maybe goofier. But yeah, over on Patreon, we got a bunch of stuff going on. There's a new episode of, I forget the name of it, but it's our podcast where Amanda dives deeper into research that's sort of left over from videos. The current podcast episode, I think it came out yesterday, is on kleptomania and how at different points of history, women got to use kleptomania as an excuse to steal, which was really cool. Um, so you can check that out. Last week, I put up an episode of Philosophy Office Hours, the video series where I just talk more about the stuff we talk about in the channel. So you can check that out. And as always, we added our $1 Patreon level for those of you that just want to throw us a buck so that we can stay alive. More important than ever, folks. More important than ever. Like the stream if you haven't already, because that's what we tell you to do. That's what we ask you to do. So let's take a look at some comments. Oh, so we're starting with is the first one that you have up the one about the streams? All right. This is from Uncanny Knits. It says listening to the streams makes me feel like I'm touching grass. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's interesting because you're still just online looking at the internet when we're doing this, but I'm glad that in this space the stream feels like something real. That's nice. So I really appreciate that, Uncanny Knits. Let's see, this is another stream comment. It says, please don't apologize about philosophical digressions. That's the only reason I watch this channel. Your PhD is not a bug, it's a feature. Well, it's a bug to my financial life, but a feature to this. So, VK Kim, thank you for encouraging that. Now, we have some comments from the Jordan Peterson video, and we'll talk about the Peterson stuff today. This is from King Jackson. It says, no way he chopped any of that wood. If you didn't watch Jordan Peterson video, you might not know this, but one of the clips, and we'll maybe watch some more of that clip today. He is speaking against a backdrop where there's a pile of chopped wood, and his thing is very much feigning a certain sort of traditional masculinity. So seeing that wood, one can't help but think like, did Jordan Peterson actually chop that wood? And no one seems to think that he actually chopped that wood. And we talked about I talked about this so much, and I'm going to try to make today the last time I talk about Jordan Peterson in a while, unless he does something really stupid soon, which he probably will. But I'm just obsessed with his obsession with traditional masculinity. But then he's also like a gaunt and frail academic that wears two-tone suits. I just don't get it, guys. So his comments from Danny Boy. Oh, Danny Boy. Danny Boy studied theology. Wrote my bachelor's thesis on the topic of biblical justice in relation to the writings of Reformed theologian Jürgen Moltmann. Jordan Peterson's assertion that faith and Christianity are not about social justice is just baffling to me. So yeah, that's one of the big things that I kind of harped on. We can talk about it a little more today in the Jordan Peterson video. Is he's obsessed with the idea that Christianity, in particular, relatively traditional Catholicism, are a sort of a antidote to social justice, and that social justice, woke culture, whatever it is oppositional to Christianity, which I think is interesting. I've talked about this before, but I am not someone who would currently consider themselves a believer in any theological system or religion, but I'm also someone who grew up Catholic, and I studied religion and philosophy of religion, and I do have a pretty big appreciation for religion, in so much as it has been a force in forming communities and motivating actions around justice and things like that. And it's just there. Like it's in the books, it's in the traditions. So I think I did find it baffling that Jordan Peterson is wanting to use a tradition that in many ways is steeped in traditions of social justice to argue against what he sees as current trends in social justice. And something that was great is in the video. Oh my god, I bit my lip. That's the worst. That's the worst. Oh god. That's it. Let's cancel this. But in the video, I asked for people like this person, Danny Boy, that came through, who are theologians or pastors or whatever, to comment, and a lot of like pastors and youth ministers and theology students dropped in to basically be like, yeah, Jordan Peterson doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. It was really funny that there was comments, and this was like obvious, right? The title of the video is Jordan Peterson doesn't understand Christianity. And a lot of comments were like, more like Wisecrack doesn't understand Christianity. And I was like, okay, I don't care. But I appreciated that like actual ministers and stuff dropped in to be like, oh no, this is good. This makes sense. He is bad. So for once, guys, for once the clergy is on our side. Um, this is from CTA Boss. It says people forget that you can't fit Catholicism into a political ideology left or right. That's why many people are confused about Francis lashing out against gender theory, while also coming across as more liberal. I study theology, I'm Catholic too, and one problem I tend to see with converts, especially who watch Peterson, is that they attach themselves to politics first and then their faith. They wear their religion as a political jacket. Yeah, I mean, we talk about this in the video, but there has been a tendency recently for a lot of younger, I don't know, like neoconservatives or reactionaries or whatever, to attach their thing to Catholicism. We mentioned the women of Red Scare in the video. And like, I'm not trying to be punny here. They really scare me. Like both of those women I find very intense and very scary. And I could see them doing a cocaine fueled murder, but somehow justifying it via some reading of like pre-Vatican I Catholicism. But I think this is a good point because I think there's a risk whenever someone tries to glob theological traditions on a contemporary political ideology because they are kind of at odds, and that does make sense of why someone like Pope Francis, who, in the video I had to punch in at a certain point to be like, oh my bad, I maybe got a little ahead of my skis in saying that he was the cool pope because he has also said some very sus things about trans people, but you know, it is both and. It's a tradition that values social and economic justice and has pretty retrograde and in many ways damaging views about gender and sexuality. And I do think for Peterson and people of his ilk, I just don't get why you need religion or need Christianity to like do the thing that you want to do.
I
Just like do it, you know?
Yeah, I think that juxtaposing it into politics, I'm wondering if, in a reactionary sense, like in the post-Trump era, like the Republicans and traditionalists that like don't want Donald Trump to be their masthead, like, is
Mhm.
that why there's like a drive by them to like seize these more like traditional, like symbolic forms of respectability?
Yeah. I know, and there's something too about like, and we'll maybe get into this if we look at some clips, but like, something about a potentially interesting thing about religion. And again, I say this as someone, I mean, you guys do know this whole stream is a psyop by the CIA and the CIA's evangelical wing to gather information on our enemies. But, um, you know, I think a thing you see in religion that I think can be good is an emphasis on like humility and openness. That's where there is an overlap between philosophy and religion, and so much as philosophy is grounded in a sense of wonder that asks us to like humbly reconsider our own opinions and think that the world might be different. And there's elements of faith that are like that. So it's weird to see someone like Jordan Peterson get not like approach faith or religion or whatever from a spirit of humility, wonder, openness to tradition, but basically saying like, I already believe all these things. This institution is now going to be used to justify at a theological level the things I already believe. Chris Maverick in the chat, so good to see him in the chat, says it's an ideological confirmation bias. Christianity, like many religions, is based on faith as a representation of ideology. Many will start with the premise, I am good and right, and work backwards. Yeah. So, I think that's really dangerous, or not, maybe not dangerous, but just not cool. And some of the clergy who commented on the video noted that now it's something they have to deal with, is like having young men in particular show up at their churches and youth groups and be like, yeah, Jordan Peterson said this is where it goes down, this is how we do it. And they're not so into that.
Conquer the land.
Yeah. S.J. Riker says, and a lot of Christianity becomes the source for meaning in your life. It is what tells you to be good, what tells you to care about others, rather than recognizing value in being good. Yeah. Yeah, and I think again, like that's what, like, if we're gonna say that religion can be a good thing, it should be that, right? A thing that makes you want to care about others and get outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many people left. It was kind of fun. It was probably the most Bible verses that have ever been left in comments to a Wisecrack video. But a lot of the verses people left were about like humility and caring for others and all this sort of stuff where it's like, yeah, that's the shit. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Um, so there you go. Blasphemous is here and plans to quit their job. I mean, I think we support you quitting your job only if you are able to support yourself without a job. We don't want to push anyone into anything reckless here. So, if you are able to continue to support yourself without that job, I think we say go for it, right? Yeah. Let's see. A news story that's breaking that I won't say anything about because I don't know a lot about it. But if anyone has thoughts, so was it the Congress vote to ban TikTok today? Is that a thing?
Let me check. I was unaware. I was putting together some comments and stuff this morning, but was
Yeah,
more. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. I'll be right back.
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna search this. If someone in the chat knows more, please let us know. Let's say TikTok Congress. Yeah, House passes bill that could ban TikTok in the U.S., sending it to the Senate.
Oh, okay. So there's still a ways to go on like
Yeah,
actual stuff happening, but wow. So glad they could manage that, and I don't know. I'm still wondering what happened to healthcare.
yeah, I know. Seriously. Yeah, the vote was 352 to 65. It now heads to the Senate, where it faces an uncertain fate. Um, a quote from Speaker Mike Johnson says, Communist China is America's largest geopolitical foe and is using technology to actively undermine America's economy and security. Today's bipartisan vote demonstrates Congress's opposition to Communist China's attempt to spy on and manipulate Americans and signals our resolve to deter our enemies. Um, let's see.
They are
Well,
now
Marjorie
called
Taylor
freedom
Greene.
fries.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene voted against it. That's interesting. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure that some people in the chat know way more than I do about this sort of thing, but it just seems kind of dumb in so much as, like, doesn't all social media do this? Like, doesn't hasn't, like, what source of social media or what thing doesn't spy on us or sell data or whatever? I don't know. I'm not a very active TikTok user. Let me know, friends. Do you feel like in using TikTok, um, this is happening?
Yeah,
Let's
am
see.
I like a millennial? Am I an old man in my feelings on this being similar to like I don't know. I feel like if the Russian propaganda, for instance, was influencing us as well online, it's because we have susceptible populations to misinformation because of a lack of education.
Yeah. I don't, and then part of me wonders too, like if people on the right really just don't like it because like their teenage children are getting radicalized.
Right.
Um, but again, it's one of those things where I don't feel like I know enough to say about. I'm
Yeah, am
just
I too much of a hippie thinking this is just kind of like some sort of Cold War type tech fear mongering stuff, or is there some sort of complaint beyond nationalism that is valid here?
yeah. Um, this is a funny thing. I'm gonna share. Well, we don't get. I just as I was looking at the news, I also saw a story that just broke, which I think is kind of funny. That Don Lemon, the CNN anchor who had a big deal for a show on X, it got canceled after the first episode because he did an interview with Elon Musk, and then Elon Musk didn't like it, so then he canceled his thing. um, that's really really funny. Um, and they had a whole thing, and it's just because he did one interview with them and he didn't like it. That's fun. So things are going well on the internet is my main point. I think there's one more thing before we dive into some of the Peterson stuff I wanted to talk about. Let me
Yeah,
see if
I'm
I
trying
can.
to keep up with the chat since they're talking the TikTok bill. Jay Miller is saying it gives the government power to label and criminalize owning and maintaining any website. So it may be an excuse to get a more comprehensive sort of all-reaching tech regulation through under some sort of nationalist jingoist idea.
Can you pull up this Ben Shapiro tweet? It's in our
Yes.
Telegram chat. I just pushed it to the front. We won't watch. I don't think we should watch the video attached to it because I don't want you to have to hear Ben Shapiro's voice. Yeah. So this one, guys, this is a fun one.
Saying that we
Ben
haven't raised the retirement.
Shapiro, your friend and mine, failed screenwriter, little guy, uh, went on a video rant on the Daily Wire about Medicare and Social Security and said no one in the United States, oops, burp, no one in the United States should be retiring at 65 years old. Frankly, I think retirement itself is a stupid idea unless you have some sort of health problem. So Ben Shapiro, who and I get it because he's a hardworking guy, and I can say this, who sits in a little room and speaks into a little camera. So he's a hardworking man, thinks that no one should get to retire. Um, none of you, none of you will ever get to retire if Ben Shapiro becomes Lord Master. And then he tweeted out a link to the video of him saying this and said, yes, if you are mentally and physically healthy, taxpayers should not pay you to retire at 65. When Social Security was created, life expectancy was 64. Today it's 78. So first thing here, guys, um, statistics, right? When we say that like life expectancy being 64, correct me if I'm wrong, that's like an average, right? Like we average out all of the ages that people die and we end up with 64.
Yeah, a lot of like older, lower mortality rates are more because the infant mortality rate was much higher than like the average, or like than like the older person's rate.
Yeah. So he seems to imply that Social Security was created at 65 because everyone died at 64, which isn't true.
Right.
It's a misreading of statistics. And you could say the same thing with now our life expectancy being 78. I mean, also when it's like taxpayers should pay you to retire, don't we pay into that our whole lives? Haven't every paycheck we've ever had taken some out for Social Security? So it's not taxpayers. Like you're kind of putting it down on your own retirement. But this whole way of looking at life where hard work has some inherent value
I
where no one should get to just chill. Like I don't even if you're like super far right, even if you are someone, and I'm speaking to you if you're watching this, and I don't judge you if this is you, even if you're like super free market, neoliberal, libertarian, all the way down the line, you still just want to like work forever?
my my question, like, to kind of like advocate or like instigate along his lines of thinking, is like, if people require purpose, how do we enable them to discover or figure out what their purpose is?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Like how do we create the space for the discovery of purpose? And then also, why is purpose so necessarily connected to market forces? Like, why must one's purpose involve the creation of surplus wealth for someone else? Because like most super old people these days, I don't know if you guys have noticed this for my friends in America. Like more and more now, when you're at like the grocery store or Target or the UPS store or whatever it might be, there's more like super old people working. And when I was growing up, there wasn't as many super old people working. That's a really scientific term I'm using, super old. But I don't know. I don't think that some 80-year-old who has to bag groceries to pay for his medication is like, thank God that I have this purpose. When I put the Hot Pockets and Doritos of the Stone Teenagers into the plastic bag, I feel like God made me for a reason. Um, yeah. Let's see. Okay, so James makes a good point. Thank you for correcting me on that, James. Um, let's see. Let's see. Some points on taxpayer money. So I'm learning so much um, from the chat. Sorry. Striving to Balance says seniors. When I was a kid in the South, rural areas, tons of people were working in grocery stores. Yeah, but it just sucks, and I just hate that that's a valid way of looking at life and reality. It's not fun. It's not fun. If anyone else has thoughts on that, let me know. I think a thing I'm pretty proud of myself for is I've never really watched anything full length by Ben Shapiro ever. Like I've never listened to a full interview. I've never watched a full episode of anything he's done. I just find him so upsetting at a
I've
very base level.
Yeah, I've watched a few Daily Wire movies. I watch reactionary cinema in general, though. But yeah, I've never
Yeah.
gone over to like the Daily Wire streaming service and like looked at his like daily programming or like his news shows. Like, I don't watch his clips in the same way I've gone through, just other news sources.
Yeah. Um, okay, let's watch a little Peterson. I'm gonna let's see. I'm gonna see if I can load up this one. Yeah. Oh, did I send you the watch together, or did it not work?
As well, I would.
Oh, oh, I sent. I think you have a link in Telegram. Does that work? Awesome. But I'm gonna fast forward to a point of this thing that I like. So guys, I watched a lot of Jordan Peterson to prep for the recent video. It's never fun to watch tons and tons and tons of Jordan Peterson. Um, and this is a talk he's giving at Franciscan University, a Catholic university in Steubenville, Ohio. I'm gonna start a little bit before I think where I'm supposed to be and see what he's getting into because he gets into some stuff I like here. So I'm gonna press play, and this is just some extra stuff, guys. Some extra stuff from looking at the Peterson video, and happy to chat about any of this as well as we go. So I'm gonna jump in and see if I can find the point I want to be at.
And that's fine, fair enough. But it makes you vulnerable to another satanic synonym is the accuser. Right. His question is, well, how susceptible should you be to accusations? And that's a tough one because, like I said, if you're a good person, it's pretty easy to feel guilty. But the problem with that is your guilt can be weaponized.
Yeah, so this is what he's getting at here, and it's a long video where he talks to a priest for a bit, but it's a very interesting take on the weaponization of guilt and like how you shouldn't feel bad for your privilege. He'll go on, but it's interesting stuff.
And that's happening. So all of you people with your privilege. So, I guess I'd part with that thought.
Also, I want to note too, this is a talk at a college, but when you look at the backs of the heads on the screen here, it's just like bald dudes and ladies with white hair. So I don't think it's the college kids that are really loving it.
I think part of the reason that there's an injunction, a religious injunction, to atone is to come to terms with your privilege so that it can't be weaponized. Maybe.
This is really interesting that he thinks that the emphasis on atonement in Christianity is to come to terms with your privilege so it can't be weaponized. That's so weird. And I'm sure there's some people in the chat that have more theological knowledge than me. But atonement, as I understand it, in biblical tradition, has to do with like a reconciliation. Like a reconciliation between man and divine, and fallen and perfect, and all this sort of stuff. So the idea that atonement is a way that we reckon with our privilege to like protect ourselves from accusations is so wild.
It's more complicated than that. But it's a good start. It's like there are all sorts of advantages you have that other people don't have. And no doubt disadvantages as well, right, that are unique to you. But let's stick with the advantages. It's like, well, what makes you deserving of those advantages? And it can't really be historical happenstance. You happen to be born American, which is relatively good fortune, because you can really not attribute that to you. You don't deserve that in any sense. So how do you justify it? And I think the answer is by leading an ethical life.
It really reminds me of Keith Raniere from the Nexium cult right there, this notion of leading an ethical life. But what he's saying right now, I remember like watching this for the first time, and it doesn't seem crazy, where he takes it a little while. This idea, again, that the way that we deal with our privilege is living an ethical life. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. And I do think there's something to be said for like recognizing one's privilege.
Like the answer, it's not like you should lead an ethical life. You should. That's not the issue. The issue is that's how you atone for your unearned privilege. And the advantage to that is your guilt can't be weaponized under those conditions, not by other people, which is very important at the moment, but also by you. It's like you think, well, I've got these advantages. Well, what am I doing about them? I'm doing the best I can with them, right? That's how I justify them, is I try to treat them as gifts, and I try to make the most out of them in a way that's maximally beneficial for me and for everybody else simultaneously. I'm actually trying to do that. It's like, well...
In watching everything I've seen where Peterson talks about religion, though, you don't really see him get into what he's doing or what he thinks we should do that's ethical, other than like capturing wives and going to church and fighting a culture war. For someone who, I mean, it's interesting to say that, and I think in the same lecture he gets into this, but like religion and Christianity in general are not associated with social justice. They shouldn't be about making the world a better place. At the same time, what we should do to reconcile with our privilege is to live ethical lives that make the world better. Like, I don't know.
Who could ask for more than that? And I think that's one weapon in the culture war.
A weapon in the culture war. So reconciling with your privilege such that you try to lead a good life is a weapon in a culture war. The idea being that like we should be ethical as a weapon in a culture war. I found that really wild. Is that wild to anyone else? Or is that just me that's getting
it's a lot of inverting like any of the social aspects of religion into like an individualist power thing, and you get into this very well in the video. But I mean, it's something that if you've read like even like John Milton and stuff, like I'm not religious in a sense, but like I hear Peterson's take on like this individualist inversion of like traditional Christian like ethics, and it sounds very satanic, and in the way that Satan is portrayed in Paradise Lost as a character that can't like see beyond himself and keep shooting himself in the dick. My reading of Paradise Lost is very much like a Coen Brothers comedy.
yeah.
And Peterson very much would be the main character of a Coen Brothers comedy, I feel.
Yeah. Ann Porkin says he's circling a decent idea, but he's going to jump to an extreme conclusion. Matthew Jacobs says the idea that you can be justified by living an ethical life is very anti-Christian. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. Like he starts saying stuff that isn't wild. Let's see, S.J. Riker says, but what is an ethical life when one does not work to raise the lowest? Christ worked to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, heal the sick, and defend the outcast. Yeah, so like, I don't think, and again, guys, not a scholar of the Bible, but I don't think it's like Jesus, washed the feet of the lowly to defend himself as a weapon in the culture war, And I think the idea that one would approach an ethical life not to be a good person, not to make the world better, not to atone for injustice, but to, create like a shield against a culture war. Because it almost sounds like what he's saying is like, you should be good so that when someone says to you like, hey, you're being racist or you're being transphobic or whatever, you can be like, no, I'm good. But I'm good, so you can't touch me. Just very weird. I'll watch a little bit more of this one.
It's like, if you're living an ethical life, you know, if you're doing your best, well, maybe you can stop apologizing for your privilege.
And that's kind of weird too. Like, if you're doing your best, you can stop apologizing for your privilege. So like, you should live a life that's ethical to the point that it means you don't have to apologize for your privilege or feel bad. I also think that like in this culture war stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong, friends in the chat. And again, thanks for being here. Like the stream if you haven't. I think that, you know, he's imagining a world where people like him, probably like white, Western educated people, constantly have to answer for their privilege, are constantly being forced in different settings to justify their existence by apologizing. But you know, as a white American male who grew up middle class and like went to college and all that sort of stuff, I kind of feel like I haven't been asked to apologize for much because I feel like you're not asked to apologize for much if you're not a dick. And if you don't live in such a way that necessitates that people are like, who the fuck do you think you are? And I don't think anyone has to like worry about getting out ahead of that. Maverick argues that non-religious is the biggest religion. Dr. Clownicus reminds us that Jesus famously beat up a bunch of bankers. That is true. Let's see.
I do wonder in the non-religious category, like that doesn't necessarily mean like an absence of spirituality. It makes me think of like what pop culture superhero, vaguely childhood religious roots, like people will synthesize into like a general ethics system while not claiming like a deity or like a you know a larger sect.
Yeah. DH says JP only thinks that because he is terminally online. I mean, I do think that's a thing that he does that probably too many of us do as well, mediate our understanding of reality and of like culture wars and political debates via the internet. The nobody, you're not late because you're always on time, and when you're here, you're family. Um, let's see. Yeah, and let's watch a little bit more of this one.
Maybe that weapon away from the people who want to burn everything down.
He's so obsessed with this, the people that want to burn everything down. Like he's like the people that are critical of like neoliberal institutions or whatever. The funniest part about that is someone brought up this example in the chat. There's stuff in like the Bible where Jesus is, you know, like render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. He doesn't really care about money. He goes up in the temple where the bankers are and is like, fuck your banking, and like acts a fool. It seems to like in the New Testament, at least, there seems to be a large disregard by Jesus and the early Christian community for like principalities and powers and you know currently existing systems and power structures. And then here Jordan Peterson is saying that faith is not only a thing that you use to be good so that people can't make you feel bad about your privilege, it's also a weapon against those who do want to question dominant principalities and powers.
Because they definitely want to burn everything down.
And I do wonder, like, who is the they that wants to burn everything down?
So
I invite the chorale if you guys.
Like queer studies.
The
politics-
woke moralists. He said it
Yeah.
before.
Like, again, it all feels so silly. And I think the thing that annoys me, I mean, it annoys me that he's being like invited into these settings. Like, what friggin' Catholic college should pay Jordan Peterson to like come through?
Yeah,
and do
it
that?
struck me in the comments how many people are all like, now I got to deal with like randos coming in with the wrong ideas because of Peterson, just like making things weird or harder for, you know, my practice.
I know, and like, God, Peterson has me out here like almost defending Christianity. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing, but he's so bad. He makes you do that. Let's watch a little bit, and we looked at some clips of this one in the video, but I think it is the funniest thing that I've seen. I want to watch this, and then we're gonna have to take a detour into Dennis Prager land because there's some Prager in one thing, but so this video, and we'll jump around.
Hi
a bit,
all.
but I think this is the funniest thing that he's done in regards to Christianity. It's his message to the Christian churches. It's where he's sitting in front of the wood. I mean, the first thing, and a lot of people answered this in the comments of that video, and I really appreciate it. Were members of the Christian church just hankering for Jordan Peterson's opinion and advice? Were they like, we can't do anything until Master Peterson tells us what to do? And if one is going to critique Christian churches, there are things to say. And I've seen many people talk about, people from within those communities level very solid critiques. I know a lot of critiques of American Christian churches in recent years have been about the way in which they have completely synthesized themselves with right-wing politics, and how evangelical Christianity in America is very wedded to some very far-right nationalistic views that many would consider antithetical to the theological tradition. I watched and this is a deep cut in the chat. Let me know if anyone's heard of this person. Henry as well. Does anyone ever listen to Pedro the Lion or David Bazan? Does anyone know what that is?
Not familiar to me at all.
Okay, aging myself here, guys. I'm aging myself. But he was like a indie emo songwriter guy from my younger years, who started out as a Christian and lost his faith. And there's a documentary that got made about him a couple years ago that's on the Libby app, which is like the library streaming app where you could watch things for free and not give money to companies and just get it from the library. But in it, he's like, oh, see, Alan said, Pedro, he gets it. In this documentary, he's like reconciling with the way a culture he used to participate in, and something he saw as a space for like justice and compassion has been turned into like a political tool. And so I think there's like critiques to be made, but I almost think it's almost like this. Like if you are a part of a political group, let's say you're a member of the, Madison, Wisconsin libertarian community, and there's like a libertarian group there. I think if you're going to hear criticisms of your group, you want them to come from like inside or from people that also are part of your ideological subset. I don't know if you want some like weirdo from the outside telling you what to do. We'll jump around a bit, but I think this video is fun.
Hi all. It is, of course, completely presumptuous of me to dare to write and broadcast a video entitled Message to the Christian Churches, but I'm going to do it anyway.
I love that he's like, this is very presumptuous of you to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. I love that. It reminds me of like, going to weird Irish bars with friends in my early 20s who would say things like, I know that I shouldn't do this thing, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Because I have something to say, and because that something needs to be said.
That's the cut right there, and the sound effect is so good.
I've been speaking to and watching and listening to audiences all over the Western world for the past 4 years, in person and in virtual form, and have learned a few things in consequence. It all started in some sense with the lectures I did on Genesis.
I like that move, because I get that. Sometimes you're talking, you're tired, and you just want to do that.
In 2017, my family and I took a risk and rented out a theater in Toronto on the off chance that there might be an audience for what might be described as a psychological approach to our ancient stories. And lo and behold, and miracle of miracles, there was.
You call it miracle of miracles. It's people wanted to come see him talk. I think in the Bible, when they talk about miracles, it's like water and wine and people rising from the dead, not a bunch of sad people in Toronto paying money to watch this guy speak.
I completed 15 or so lectures walking through the first biblical book, sold out the theater, and attracted, surprisingly, millions of viewers, Christians, Jews, Muslims, and atheists. And most of the people...
I'm going to make a bold claim here. I just don't think this is probably problematic. I'm going to say a problematic thing. I'm willing to bet there's not a lot of Muslims who are really into Jordan Peterson. I'm just going to say it. When he says that, I believe that there are Christians that get into him. I believe there's some Jews. I don't know. Shout out in the chat, Muslim friends. To me, it just doesn't seem like the sort of guy that the Muslim community has been waiting for.
People who attended law, and the majority of those who watched online were young men. That is not a phenomenon that can be easily accounted for. But Let me try.
We got to watch this thing about men, and we'll jump ahead from there.
Now, in the West, because of the weight of historical guilt that is upon us.
So back to the guilt thing, right? He's building this connection between Christianity and guilt and historical guilt and the way in which people are making all of us, but specifically young men, feel bad. And the reason we need to, I guess, like re-theologize our politics is to fight against feeling bad. Also, hot take too. Sometimes it's okay to feel bad. Like I've said and done stuff in my life where I've done it and I'm like, oh, I feel bad. I'm guilty because I did a thing. That's okay. There's
Yeah.
something you learn from that, I've done many things in life that made me feel bad. And it's okay. It's okay to feel bad. Right? Like, should we feel good all the time? I don't know.
I mean, I think
very
discomfort or guilt, or I mean, even a sense of shame, like you're gonna feel them in some way at some point. So just like understanding your feelings is always healthy.
Great comment in the chat from Dare Johnson. Sean King is probably into him. So Sean King's probably the one Muslim person who's super into him. What's up, Logan? In the chat, we really like Logan. I mean, I like all of you, but I really like Logan.
Sense of original sin in a very real sense, and because of a very real attempt by those possessed by what might be described as unhelpful ideas to weaponize that guilt, our young people face a demoralization that is perhaps unparalleled.
Okay, I'm gonna do a thing. I'm gonna say I don't think he's right for the right reasons, but like I think it is true, and let me know, fellow kids in the chat. Like, he is not wrong that we live in a world and a society where a lot of young people are kind of feeling like, what the fuck's going on? What is this all for? What am I supposed to do? And now they're not going to be able to get answers when they can't go on TikTok anymore. Obviously, I'm not going to agree with where he takes that, but I think this is the evil genius of Jordan Peterson and the Ben Shapiros and people of his ilk is like, they do speak to like a real thing, and I'm so hesitant to say anything positive, but they do something very weird with it.
This is particularly true of young men.
What up, fellas?
Although anything that devastates young men will eventually do the same to young women.
It feels like a threat.
And that, in this era of antinatalism and equally reprehensible nihilism, is precisely the point.
I don't think this guy knows what nihilism is.
When they are children...
This is my favorite part of the whole thing, okay? This is my favorite part of this whole video. Actually, it's my second favorite part, but...
Boys are hectored for their toy preferences, which often include toy weapons such as guns, and their more boisterous playing style.
Like, this is like letter to the Christian churches. I'm the new Martin Luther. I'm here to nail my theses on the wall, and his big point is like, boys are hectored for their desire to play with guns.
Hectored?
Like... I don't know. Maybe sometimes people hector kids for playing with guns because they're like, in 10 years, this kid's going to shoot up a fucking school. Like, I don't know.
As boys require active rough and tumble play, even more than girls, for whom it is also a necessity.
Even more than girls, for whom it is also a necessity. Like, this view of, I don't know, man. Although I'll say this. I was at a brunch over the weekend with some children. And my daughter was there, and there was a couple young boys, and they were really rambunctious. And I did think to myself, like, if Peterson's right, I'm glad, because I would rather have a child that doesn't require rough and tumble play and guns. I much prefer that my daughter likes to look at plants and butterflies.
When in grade school, boys are admonished, shamed, and controlled in a very similar manner.
Fellas, did you feel admonished, shamed, and controlled in grade school?
By those who think that play is unnecessary, particularly if it's competitive, and who value a docile, harmless obedience.
Okay, so let's get to this now. Jordan Peterson's thing right here is like, boys are out here, boys need to fuck shit up with their toy guns. They need to be competitive, whatever. Like, this is the guy who's saying it. It would be one thing if Jason Momoa or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or John Cena was just like, boys need to be competitive. The thing is, all those dudes are pretty chill. At least they seem pretty chill. Like John Cena did the naked thing at the Oscars. The Rock seems like a friendly enough guy. Jason Momoa seems like a good but dangerous hang. All the dudes who seem like they're really like jacked and alpha just seem like cool, mellow guys. And then we have people like him and Ben Shapiro that are just like competition and manliness. Like, I don't know. You don't hear me talking about masculinity. Now Henry can, because Henry lift weights. Henry's in the gym. Henry's putting in the work. So Henry could talk about how we all need to be more competitive and masculine, but like the most athletic thing I do is, hit golf balls twice a month. But it's just like, if you are going to be about it, be about it. If you're going to talk, and I know this isn't like a theological critique. I know I'm not saying something deep. I know that someone would be like, Michael's falling into fallacious arguments just by pointing at blah, blah. I get it. But come on. Just like Lawyer Christian said, The Rock seems like he would kill somebody with his thumb, but he wouldn't, because he would be too busy enjoying his like branded tequila and hanging out. Yeah, I don't know. Phil Walton says, as the parent of a boy, I can confirm that he needed that cold hard steel in his hand. Phil Walton currently with the comment of the day. Comment of the day is brought to you by MasterCard. With MasterCard, you can purchase toy guns for your kids. Thank you again. Enter code Wisecrack at mastercard.org to get a discount on credit cards. Again, Phil Walton is our MasterCard comment of the day. We don't really have a MasterCard sponsorship, but you can be Lord of the Chat if you want. We always encourage you to get memberships for other people because it's a fun thing to do. Thanks, Lori. Logan Reese says, JP ain't about that life. That's the thing. And I've talked about this before, guys. Like, I suffer from some toxic masculinity from my childhood, because I feel like I did actually grow up in a kind of toxic male environment. And there is still that part of me that's just like, be about that life, Jordan. Like, I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is toxic. This is bad. This isn't good. What I'm about to say is not good. Do as I say, not as I do. I want to physically fight Jordan Peterson. I don't want to attack him. I don't want to assault him. I want it to be agreed upon. I want him to agree to consensually fight me, and I want to physically fight Jordan Peterson. It will be the saddest fight in the history of the world.
Like a debate boxing match by match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be really sad. We probably would both cry. And because I am the way that I am, by the end I would be like, hey man, I know there's good inside of you. I would be like Han Solo in, was it the third of the new Star Wars movies when his son kills him?
That's
Spoilers.
the first one of the new
That's
ones.
The first one? Oh
yeah,
that
was Force Awakens.
Oh my God, I'm so, and he's like,
spoilers, chatters.
Father, can you help me do what I need to do? Yeah. Let's see him talk a little bit more.
Above all, shades of Dolores Umbridge. Following all that, because that's not enough, even when pursued assiduously for total demoralization, is the inculcation of an extremely damaging ideology, which essentially consists of 3 accusations. Number 1,
I was going to say, we're 3 minutes in, and this is like a message for the Christian churches. I feel like he hasn't articulated anything specific to like a church, and he hasn't really said anything of theological content.
Human culture, particularly in the West, is best construed as an oppressive patriarchy, motivated by the desire, willingness, and ability to use power, defined as the compulsion of others against their will, to attain what are purely selfish and self-serving ends. This is true at every level of analysis. Marriage is akin to slavery.
Yeah, go ahead, Henry. I feel like you're on the cusp of...
So given what I know about his psychology and like his love of like metaphors and mythology and just like how low effort this video is, I just feel like if Jordan Peterson existed pre-internet, he would have been like a nut job who wrote like one weird, hard science fiction fantasy novel in the 70s that people are all like, you know what, that guy's really crazy, but like it's really good. Like it's kind of a libertarian experiment, but like as speculative fiction, it works. Like, and then we'd never know who he was besides that. But thanks to the internet, instead of having to like force his ideas into like metaphorical prose, he just barfs on the internet at the lowest like posting level. And I wonder how much art we don't get because of something like that.
Oh my God. I mean, I think what Sean says accompanies Henry's insight there. Yeah, JP says a lot of pretty word, but never says anything of substance. I mean, it's interesting too. Like he operating from this point where we supposedly live under this oppressive, and obviously he's embodying the position he's fighting against by saying we live under an oppressive patriarchy that only thinks of things in positions of power, and marriage is slavery, and everything is bad. Again, I spend a lot of time with some woke lefty cucks, and I never hear anyone talk like this. But I mean, it's interesting that he has this obsession with power, and he thinks about power as a cultural force. When power, of course, is a determining factor of modern life, but it's economic power, military power, political power. Like, if cultural power was power, wouldn't the world be like different? Like, if
Yeah.
supposed like if the woke Marxist whatever had power, would the world look like this? Would we have the politics we do? Would we have the cultural products we do? No, because none of those people have any power. There you go. But then again, like thinking about power, and he's of course he's criticizing here an oppressive system of power. But that last thing we saw when he was at the University of Steubenville, or Franciscan University of Steubenville, he was saying that we precisely need to be ethical to have power to fight against our enemies. Very confusing. I love the face he's making now. I think the best part's coming in a second.
Good question, Logan.
Political disagreement to.
Ooh, what's the question? I want to see it.
Would our planes be falling apart?
Yeah, guys, I thought that was a joke at first, but I look back sometimes at the comments on the stream we made where we talked about Boeing, and there's lots of comments that are like, plane wouldn't fall apart if there wasn't trans mechanics or whatever. I'm like, what are we doing? Also, guys, Boeing killed the person. I'm sure most of you heard this, but like the whistleblower from Boeing who was like, hey, things are bad, here's why. They killed him.
Just found in his truck, right? Like, huh?
What? Like, talk about power, Mr. Boeing. Oh,
war and business arrangements to deception and theft. And this is true not only of the current social arrangements that characterize our culture, particularly in the West, but also the fundamental reality of history itself. Accusation number 2. Human activity, particularly that undertaken in the West, is fundamentally a planet despoiling enterprise.
oh yeah. So, friends, this comes up in the video as well. In watching a lot of his stuff, where he's supposed, and again, we're 4 minutes in, and I haven't really heard anything about the theological content of Christianity or the ecumenical aspects of Christian life. But a big thing he says as well, we've already seen him talk about why social justice is a bad effect or whatever of Christianity or religion. He also thinks it's very dangerous that people think that we should do stuff to keep the planet alive. And somehow this is a problem for the church. We'll watch him talk about it.
This is a threat to the ecological utopia that existed before us and that could hypothetically exist in our absence. We might well be construed even as a cancer that threatens the very viability of the complex systems that make up the ecosystem of the earth that shelters and supports us. We are facing a Malthusian catastrophe of overpopulation and biosphere degradation.
What's up,
and we have to place extreme limits on our wants, even our needs, so that survival itself, even in a much reduced form, can be guaranteed.
Guaranteed. Okay, so he thinks that the entire world is made up by like rampant eco-socialist. When like all of the leaders of Western nations who make climate pledges are all full of S. We haven't hit any of the targets. The oil lobby still has more influence in this country than any environmental group. But then also the scientific community is largely in agreement that these things are happening. And I think he's kind of perpetuating this message to people that's like, hey, all of the eco-socialists or whatever want you to live a miserable, horrible life. But it's like, I don't know, maybe we just live in a society that's not completely structured around fossil fuel consumption.
Accusation number 3.
3.
The prime contributor both to the tyranny that makes up the oppressive patriarchy and structures all of our social interactions, past and present, and the unforgivable despoiling of our beloved Mother Earth.
Why does he hate the Earth so much? Like, what did the Earth ever do to you?
Does he
Is
subscribe?
damnable.
Go ahead, Henry.
I was supposed to. Does he just subscribe to the idea that, like, climate change and stuff isn't real, and the Earth just needs to be like seized for plunder?
I think so. I mean, that's the thing too, is like the actual structure, the ideological structure he has. Like, I mean, it is one of like, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, but it's really just like an intense form of patriarchal capitalist exploitation in which one wields power on the basis of gender identity for the sake of, gaining as much power and resources as one can, in which the earth is to be instrumentalized by the consciousness of man. It's like a sort of like, Lockean colonial mindset where, those who deem themselves most rational have power over the earth or whatever. It's wild. Also, a lot of people left comments about this in the Jordan Peterson video, so I would just say, like, look at those. Juju said, how many rich people flew into the Super Bowl with private jets, but I'm gonna use a cardboard straw? I'm working on a video about that now because it's really dumb, guys. All the stuff they try to make us do is just like so dumb. Spoiler alert: your paper straw does nothing. So sorry for all my barista friends out there still trying to make people use those. But yeah, let's see how he threads this together.
Male ambition, competitive and dominating, power mad, selfish, exploitative, raping and pillaging. You might think that I'm overstating the case.
I just want you to get ready for it. If you're only half paying attention, just right now, I want you to tune in, put down your other device, just focus right now.
Think again, sunshine.
That's a real thing this man said. We are 5 minutes and 20 seconds in this video. We're halfway through this video where he has the hubris to say that he's going to give a whole message, a lecture to the Christian church. And he just looked us in the eyes and said, think again, sunshine. If you want to convince me to like be on your team, don't call me sunshine. Who wants to be called that? I don't.
We in the West are facing an all-out assault at the deepest levels on what that old joker Jacques Derrida.
And now this is where we get into Jacques Derrida. Like, we're still not talked about Christianity in any way, shape, or form. We've been criticized and called sunshine. And now he's bringing up that old joker, Jacques Derrida. Jacques Derrida's not an old joker. He was like an eccentric and kind of esoteric French philosopher who wrote a lot of weird and interesting stuff that's hard to get one's head around. And in case you don't know this, we did a video on Jordan Peterson and postmodernism that talks about this in particular. You can go watch it if you want. If you're watching this video right now and you're like, who is the gaunt old white guy that the gaunt less old white guy is talking about, I envy you. If you don't know who this man is, I envy you. The same way that we made that Mr. Beast video and there's comments are like, I've never heard of this man before. I was like, I am so envious of you.
Deemed a logocentric conceptual structure of civilization itself. To take that apart, that's a society centered on the encouraging, adventurous, masculine spirit.
It's not. Phallogocentrism has to do with the construction of language, and language having a phallic structure. It relates both to Derrida's deconstruction of language and some psychoanalytic stuff. It has nothing to do with what he's saying right now. How do you know, Michael? Because I read the books. I just read it. It's all you got to do, guys. Whenever you're confused in life, just read the thing that people are talking about, I know that's easier said than done, but you know what I'm saying.
And that privileges that hated word of all things, the divine logos. And what should we worship and celebrate properly other than that? Deconstructionists, the words of that mass murderer Karl Marx.
So we just jumped in, how long? In 38 seconds. We went from those critiques about how we all want to, people are destroying the planet, blah, 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 to Derrida's phallogocentrism, critiques a world where men have power and they don't honor the divine logos. The divine logos just mean there's like a divine truth that makes sense of language and meaning. So what do we do if we don't have that divine sense of meaning? Well, we worship the mass murderer Karl Marx. Irony here, guys. Jacques Derrida, not a Marxist. He's not a Marxist. Did he read Marx? Yes. Did he engage with Marxist thinking? Yes. But Jacques Derrida was not a Marxist in any way, shape, or form. And actually, some of Derrida's critiques of Marxism were really similar to his critiques of religion. And if we want to talk about what would the postmodern or deconstructionist critique of religion be in general, the idea that there is a consistent point of logic that narratively structures everything else without consistency or without paradox. Now, this is why, philosophical digression, here we go. This is why Derrida was interested in Kierkegaard's reading of Christianity, because in Kierkegaard's book Fear and Trembling, he talks about the story of Abraham and Isaac. If you never read that story, there's this guy, his name's Abraham, and he just can't have a kid. He's fucking and he's fucking, and no one will get pregnant. And eventually God gets this one woman pregnant for him. And then he finally has a kid. And then God says, "Hey, go on a hike with your boy." And Abraham's like, "Yeah, cool, I'll go hike with my boy." And then they're on this hike, and then God's like, "Oh, by the way, I need you to tie him up and just stab him real good until he dies." And Abraham's like, "What? I wanted a kid for so long. I was fucking and fucking and fucking, and I didn't get a kid, and I finally got a kid. And now God's telling me I got to stab him up real good." And they're walking up the mountain, and finally, kid's like, "Dad, what are we doing now?" And he's like, "Just shut up, boy." And he gets the knife out, and he's about to just slice this kid up. And then God's like, "Just kidding. You're good. You're fine." Now, Kierkegaard looks at this story and is like, "Hey guys, the point here isn't that we need to find a logic in it. The point is that there's a paradoxical action of faith, meaning that the divine thing is something we just can't understand because it isn't like a logical, consistent principle, and we make a mistake when we try to reduce it to that," which is similar to what Derrida is saying, because Derrida's whole point, the point of deconstruction, is to look at any system that says we got it all figured out, fully coherent logic, no questions here, and ask questions about that. That's what's going on. He didn't get that.
And it is precisely those young men who are deeply conscientious, capable of guilt and regret, who have come to believe in pain.
Ooh, Sensational Stallion, Lord of the Chat. I will say, if there's one divine logos I agree with, it's the Lord of the Chat. I think the logic of the Lord of the Chat structures all of existence and reality. And as long as we all worship and give thanks to the Lord of the Chat, we will be saved. Please like the stream if you haven't.
Impulse that moves them out into the world for the adventure of their life, even that impulse drawing them to women.
Oh boy. So he pivoted from saying that Karl Marx was a mass murderer. And guys, you could hate Marx and you could think everything he ever wrote was dumb. No worries at all. He didn't murder anyone. He was more of a house dad. If anything, he was just kind of like a sickly house dad with a bunch of daughters.
Yeah,
Would,
I
like,
thought
get money from his friends.
I thought one of the go-to like punching points is that he just like sat around and did nothing from afar. Like people are all like, "Oh yeah, he was just a rich kid who was writing stuff. He didn't fight anything."
I mean, if anything, Jordan Peterson, Marx was a kind of failed academic who lived in a little room where he just talked and wrote all day about big stuff while he never really did that much. I'm just saying. But this is where he pivots into the idea that all of those things, foul logocentrism, deconstruction, murderous Marxism, are keeping young men from adventure. And like, again, too, this guy talks like he's a goddamn pirate or a pioneer. He's just a little Canadian dandy who wears suits and reads books. Nothing is wrong with that. But you're not Indiana Jones, bud. You're not. You ain't got no whip. And then he ties this weird thing as well into like your men have this desire for like adventure and conquering, like, and for women. And again, we're not here to shame heteronormativity. I snagged myself a wife. I get it. But like to act as if the primary like ethical and existential goal of men is to like go on an adventure and snag a wife. It's like, again, it's Indiana Jones shit, although he can never settle down.
Is nothing but the manifestation of a spirit that is essentially satanic in nature. This is not only wrong theologically, morally.
So he says the word theologically here, but then he doesn't offer an actual theological critique of anything he's saying, which is annoying because one could give a coherent theological critique of modern views of gender where you kind of defended gender binaries and things around that. You could do that. I don't think I would think it'd be wrong, but you could do that. There's coherent arguments to be made, but he just says stuff.
Psychologically and scientifically, it is literally anti-true.
So here's a tip, guys. You can just say things are anti-true. If there's like a thing that that you don't like, you just say it's anti-true. You know, did he tell us why it's not true? No. Did he give us an argument or point to any like text or anything like that? No. But he just said it's anti-true. Well, you know, we're on this journey. Let's keep going.
It's not a statement about the nature of reality, a minor conceptual error, but something that literally could not be farther from the truth. And something that distant from the truth comes from a place that cannot be distinguished from hell.
What is he saying? There's a really good book by a Catholic phenomenologist called I Am the Truth. This guy, Michel Henry, who's a French philosopher who's like kind of like weirdly Catholic. And his whole thing is like, it's interesting that if you want to be theological about this, that in the Bible, it's not like this is the truth. It's like I am the truth is how I think Christ identifies himself. The whole point being that truth is like a lived experiential thing and not like a set of propositional ideas. And I think that's a much more interesting reading than whatever the hell this is.
The Christian church is there to remind people,
Here we go.
young men included, and perhaps even first and foremost.
So we're at what point are we at? It's like 7 minutes in. He's finally talking about the Christian church, and he's saying that the Christian church's primary role is something to do with men, and reminding men of something. So let's get into that.
Foremost, that they have a woman to find.
The first thing he says when he finally gets to any level of theological content, and he says the Christian church has a thing, the primary role for men, and it's they have a woman to find. Guys, Jesus didn't find a woman. That little cuck never got his D wet. Paul didn't get married. All the apostles, I know enough to know that like that isn't a part of it. That isn't a part of it, guys. Penny Waldrop says I'd rather be talking about P. Diddy. Diddy, bad guy. Diddy, a real bad guy. But like, wow, I'm gonna keep going.
A garden to walk in.
A garden to walk in. Is the garden in nature? Is it in an ecosystem? Should we protect that garden? Should we take care of the ecosystem that perpetuates that garden? I don't know.
Family to nurture. An ark to build.
What is the ark?
A land to conquer.
A land to conquer. If you are in the chat right now and you're someone that has the knowledge of like biblical tradition and Christian theology, when is the land to conquer? Like this is really just a weird form of like colonial, you know, European hyper masculine Christianity where we're like snagging wives and building arks and conquering the land.
A heaven to build, and the utter terrible catastrophe of life to face stalwartly in truth, devoted to love.
I love when he just says devoted to love. Where has love come up in any way, shape, or form? What has the discussion of love been?
And without fear. Invite the young men back. Say, literally, to those young men, you are welcome here.
Do young men feel like they're not allowed to go to church? That's like another thing. Chris Maverick is being really heretical and saying that Jesus did sex with Mary Magdalene. You know, my deep Catholic soul is deeply offended by that. I hope they did it though. That would be fun. But yeah, what is love? What does love mean in this context? We don't talk about love. We talk about anger and conquering. We don't talk about love.
If no one else wants what you have to offer, we do. We want to call you to the highest purpose of your life. We want your time and energy and effort and your will and your goodwill. We want to work with you to make things better, to produce life more abundant for you and for your wife and children.
So the point of the church, so the church has to tell the boys to come back. The boys are back in town, and that town is a cathedral. And it's to tell them that, like, we're going to get you a wife that you can get pregnant.
And for your community and your country.
And your country, yeah.
And the world. And we have our problems in the Christian church. We are moribund and sometimes, far too often, corrupt, and sometimes deeply so. We are outdated as are all institutions with their roots in the dead but still often wise past. So join us. We'll help fix you up,
We'll help fix you up.
and you can help fix us up. And together, we'll aim up. And here's a message to those young men skeptical about such things. What else do you have?
Yeah, man, listen up.
You can abandon the churches in your cynicism and disbelief. You can say to yourself, narcissistically and solipsistically, the church does not express what I believe properly. Who cares what you believe?
Who cares what you believe?
Yeah, Jordan, who cares
Why-
what you believe?
Like, I'm just so confused, guys. I guess the thing that just, it's funny to like laugh at and make fun of. People watch this. Millions of people watch this and like they buy his books. They pay. If you ever looked, guys, if you ever want to be depressed, when Jordan Peterson goes on like a tour, look at the prices for what people are paying to go see him live. It's not cheap. I'll say that. People are not paying money. Yeah, he does need to work on volume control. Even just have like a good like compression app or something for the audio.
Why is this about you? Do you even want it to be about you? What if it was about others? What if it was about your duty to the past and to the broader community that
But he never describes what that duty to a community looks like.
surrounds you in the present? What if it was incumbent upon you and vital to your health and willingness even to live, to rescue your dead father from the belly of the beast,
I think he says if you have a dead dad, he wants you to dig his body up.
where he has always resided, and to restore him to life?
He wants us to weird science our dead dads back to life.
Once again, to the churches, Protestant, you're the worst at the moment. Catholic, Orthodox,
You're the worst.
invite young men, put up a billboard, say, young men
Could you imagine the church being like, young men, boys, get yourself back in here. We miss you.
He's
Like-
just like power ranking denominations like he's on poll. It's like, what are you doing, man?
Like, get a billboard, put a priest in the middle, surround him with young boys. Say, this could be you. Get your ass in here. Like, dude, have you even seen Spotlight, Jordan Peterson?
are welcome here. Print some flyers and put them in a box by the billboard.
When's the last time you guys have seen a billboard where you're like, yeah, I gotta go check that billboard out. There might be a box. There might be a box at the bottom of the billboard. If there is, I gotta see if there's flyers in the box. Billboards are normally on like highways and shit. Who's walking up to be like, let's see if there's a box?
Signal the existence of those flyers with an arrow with the words, more
So you gotta fill the billboard, and they're putting a box, and we gotta attach an arrow to the billboard so everyone knows where to look. This sounds like friggin' like some trick that Roger Rabbit would play on someone, where he would like set up a whole thing, but then it's just TNT dynamite.
information about attending here. Tell those who have never been in a church exactly what to do, how to dress, when to show up, who to call.
So they're saying like, boys, get in here. I'm gonna tell you how to dress. You looked at the billboard, you followed the arrow, you went into my box, you got my flyer. Now you'll come to my service dressed exactly how I want.
Contact, and most
I'm
importantly,
losing my mind.
what they can do. Ask more, not less, of those you are inviting. Ask more of them than anyone ever has. Remind them who they are in the deepest sense and help them become that. Your churches, for God's sake. Quit fighting for social justice.
So, and it just comes out of nowhere. It comes out of nowhere. So what the good idea is we have our billboard, we have our sign, we have our box. The flyer has a dress code on it. And he's saying that's what a church should do. But then he's saying like social justice is stupid.
Quit saving the bloody planet.
Yeah, fuck the planet.
Attend to some souls. That's what you're supposed to do. That's your holy duty. Do it now, before it's too late. And the hour is nigh.
The hour is 9. Guys, he doesn't in that 10-minute video where he gives the messages of Christian church, he doesn't quote, he doesn't talk about it. He doesn't give any like content. I just think if you're going to make something like that, like quote the Bible or talk about theology or give some sort of context there. I just, yeah. Alexander says his old lectures on Jungian psychology and maps of meaning was really good. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you watch his old lectures, he seems like a normal, he just seems like a professor. You know, he's like a guy where it's like, oh, this makes sense. This is like what a professor guy is like. And now he's just on this whole shit right there. But again, like it all comes back around to stop saving the planet and stop fighting for social justice. And of course, like, you know, we can, you know, the word social justice has become this sort of anomalous thing that doesn't mean much. But from what I know of the Christian tradition, social justice is normally just like fighting for the rights of the poor and the downtrodden and the migrant and making communities more just. Like it's pretty like chill stuff. YouTube Punk, he did not say Jesus once. Chuck L said benzos are a hell of a drug. Fight Mag Studio said, guys, stop paying attention and ignore the real problems. Focus on the afterlife and not on improving the world because it's better for others. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the motivation here is. There's part of me that just thinks it's like really like a cynical grab for attention and a way to legitimize what he's doing by adding like the legitimacy of religious institutions onto it, I guess.
Does he still have his psychology? Can he still practice psychology, or did he lose his license? I know that was in turmoil, so like I always just assume he's figuring out what he can do for money besides, you know, that.
Yeah, if I understand it correctly, I'm sorry, just copying and pasting something to shoot over to Henry. I'm pretty sure he can't practice psychology in Canada anymore because he like wouldn't acknowledge like preferred pronouns or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that being the general nature of it.
Yeah, slight problem on my end, Henry. You know what I didn't realize until just now? I don't like yeah, I don't have Zoom on the computer I'm on.
Oh no, how are we going to accommodate our guests? We have it all set otherwise.
I guess I could I use my phone and then I'll be on the phone? Huh.
I guess we can cut to pre-roll for a moment while we figure this out, and then we will surprise the audience with a completely fresh take on how we do a Zoom call on the show.
Yeah, everyone, can you guys figure everything we're talking about? Can you just figure it out in the chat, and we'll be right back with some guests? That would be a lot to us. Don't leave. We have some guests coming.
We really do have some guests we're happy to share with y'all. Please stick around. We're going to pre-roll for just a moment.
Okay, guys, thanks for hanging out. We are back. We had some technical stuff, but excited now because we have two guests. These are the hosts of Scumbags of History, which is a very spicy new podcast that is co-produced by our parent company, Enthusiast Media, and our friend Amanda Shirker helped develop this one as well. I'm here with the two hosts, comedians Brittany Schmidt and Mateen Stewart. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks
What's
for
up?
having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So can you just this is very boring right off the bat. What is the quick pitch for what happens on this podcast?
Mateen?
Scumbags of History is a comedy historical podcast where we essentially go over historical figures and we tell you why they're scumbags. Some people we're scumbags. Most people you don't know who.
No, it's mostly people that you think were amazing, like that we've been told by mainstream media that are great, like Steve Jobs, Mother Teresa, Coco Chanel, like all these people, Gandhi, people that have been lauded as wonderful people that we've put up on pedestals. We actually kind of dig into
the dirt.
Like we say, we dig into the dirt.
How is it? Has it been dispiriting to learn that some of these people actually suck shit, or has it been a leveling experience of realizing that maybe we shouldn't have idols? How has it affected you guys to have to learn all this stuff?
For me, there are some people that I like. Mother Teresa, I didn't know that she was so bad. I had heard some things about Gandhi, but there were some episodes. There's some episodes where we were really physically shocked by some of the debauchery that was going on by these people.
Yeah.
Brittany, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I'm not like a big history buff, so I didn't know a whole lot about a lot of the people, good or bad. I really dissociate a lot when it comes to history. So this for me was like learning both why they were like great people and why they were not so great people at the same time. But I've never really believed in like heroes. I know all people are just people and we all have flaws, but I love knocking people down a few pegs. That always.
Wow. So this is
That
perfect.
she does.
Well, how about a question for you then, Brittany? Who felt the best to knock down? Who are you most excited to put in their right place?
Mother Teresa, because Mother Teresa was one. She was one that I genuinely did know about her being put up on a pedestal. I was raised Catholic, so just like digging back and seeing like how abhorrent the conditions were in her care homes and all of that stuff. Yeah, she was really, really, really beyond shady. And then Charlie Chaplin was one that surprised me. I think Charlie Chaplin, like as comedians, we obviously put him on a pedestal. And then once we dug into that and found out he was a pedophile, we're like, oh, never mind. Nothing's sacred.
Nothing sacred. He was pretty bad, and so he's in a later episode that'll be released later. And J.R. Barrie, I didn't know much about him. So J.R. Barrie was a writer. He wrote the Peter Pan stories, and it was very shocking to me, all the things that came from just his interaction with children and like how it affected those kids that he based this book around, how it ruined their life for the rest.
Yeah, it was Pedo Pan.
Yeah, Pedo Pan.
Oh
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, there's one that I'm afraid to listen to, if I'm honest with you guys. It's the most recent episode on Albert Einstein. Like many people, I grew up as a nerdy young man liking Einstein. Watched Oppenheimer a couple times. He shows up real strong in that one. Really gives the cold shoulder to Robert Downey Jr. Can you get me ready to listen to that one? Like what are some of the things that we're going to be surprised to learn about the man who invented gravity, Albert Einstein?
Well, here's the thing about Einstein. Einstein was brilliant because he worked in a patent office at the front desk. And so then patents would come through him and then they wouldn't make it any further. And then all of a sudden he would have the invention. So he stole shit. He stole a lot of shit. Was he a genius? Maybe. Yeah, probably. But he stole a lot of stuff, and not only from the patent office, but also from his ex-wife. His ex-wife was huge on everything that he did with the theory of relativity and E=mc² and all that stuff. She was huge and never credited once. He basically just stole from like a bunch of people and then said it was all his idea.
Yeah, his wife they came up with a lot of the ideas together, and he never put them on the papers because essentially he was like, he wanted people to take it seriously. So he thought if a woman was on it, they wouldn't take it seriously. So essentially she was in the school with him and she failed the classes because the teacher didn't like women. So he just failed her because she was a woman. So she essentially came up with everything that he came up with. It was probably her original idea that he stole.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also, he liked to fuck his cousins. I don't know if I can curse on here, but
you're allowed to curse. I mean, we all now have to like live with what you just said and think about Einstein having sex with his cousins, which is tough. That's
we
tough.
Do all have to live with that. It's 11 a.m.
His double cousin.
It is 11 a.m.
I feel better for our audience on the East Coast or other places where it's later into their day. Maybe they've had their first adult beverage. Yeah. Well, so what has it been like? I know both of you are comedians, and Brittany, you'd mentioned that like previous to this you weren't super into history or anything. How have you found the balance of talking about stuff that in many senses referencing fucking cousins and stuff is kind of serious? How have you guys found like bringing some humor and levity into that?
Yeah, I mean, Bettina and I are both comedians and we've been friends for over a decade. So we have a really good shorthand with each other and we know like where we can push stuff and where we can't. So I think, naturally sometimes a little bit of the podcast, like when it was, getting mundane and it's just like facts and we're just talking about the person, the other person would jump in and cut it up with something funny. So I think we just have a really good shorthand, and it was, not easy to make funny, but it was naturally kind of came to us as it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the same kind of thing that she just said. Like, we do have a really good rapport, and I feel like it reads through the podcast. So we weren't just like stuck together. We're really good friends. And there's
Yeah.
some things that I knew that she had no idea about.
Mateen
As far as,
actually knows so much about history. I don't have much in my head. It might surprise you.
yeah,
But
my nickname in high school was Almanac. So
Oh,
yeah,
hell yeah.
a lot.
yeah. So there's a history of me knowing history,
Yeah.
and there are some really uncomfortable topics that we had to go across, and it was always interesting to see, especially in the Dr. Seuss episode, some of the things that he portrayed as far as like what he would say about Black people, and those are really tough things to hear. But also, I feel like these are things that we need to bring to the forefront, because if we just forget about it, we will just forget about it and don't know that these things happen. These historical figures did these really awful things, and we'll
Yeah.
just think everything was just like ho hum with them. So.
And Mateen did this really great thing where he brought in Mateen's Black Fact each episode, which was like a lot of times it's white people taking credit for something a Black person did first, and he would like set the record straight, which I thought was really great.
So do you guys find that after making this podcast, are you more skeptical of like who else might be a piece of shit now? Are you, watching a humanitarian award or something and just thinking, I bet they probably went to third base with an aunt or something?
I mean, I've always thought everyone's a piece of shit, so I'm 0%.
So this is your
I'm
wheelhouse.
0% surprised.
Yeah,
It hasn't changed my perception of people or reality much. It's just sort of affirming what I've always known.
Yeah, I mean, for comedians, we always have this rule: is like the cleaner the comic, the worse the person. So, I mean, I feel like that's what life, the like more upstanding you think a person is, the more horrible they will be. So,
Yeah. Well, I have a question then before I let you guys get on with your lovely days. Who do you think is good? Who's someone? Obviously, that's when you covered on this podcast. Do either of you have people in this world, whether they be public figures, writers, scientists, politicians, who you still believe are good?
I don't. I'd say my mom, but my mom, she was the best person in the world to me. I don't.
Well, you know what? We'll take that. That's a very good answer. That's a very
I
good
was going to say my dad, but then that would be a lie. Like my dad's great. My dad's great, but like if we were doing a Scumbags episode on it, he would be like racist things he said in 1998. Like, I don't know who would mind me. No, I don't think so. I think all people are multifaceted, and some of those facets are bad. That's kind of where I stand. Yeah.
Well, I guess at least you're helping people laugh at the horrors of multifaceted identity amongst famous and notable people.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So people should obviously subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform they do that on. I know there's like YouTube versions now as well they can get on. There's TikTok until the government takes it away. So you can use that for a bit. And where could people follow you guys and see what you're up to?
I'm at Brittany Schmidt, which is just BritanySchmitt on Instagram and TikTok. And my website is BrittanySchmidt.com for tour dates.
Awesome.
And I'm at Mateen Stewart everywhere. I'm the only Mateen Stewart in the world, so I'm easy to find. Even if you spell it wrong, you'll find me. And yeah, follow our Instagrams, subscribe to the show, rate it, review it, 5 stars. What I say about this podcast is you'll learn a little and you'll laugh a lot. Or you'll learn a lot and you'll laugh a little. Either way, you're gonna have a great time. It's a great podcast.
That sounds nice. It's like a meal that's maybe not the best for you, but you have like a little side salad, so you still feel good about it.
Right.
It's 45 minutes each episode. We're not long-winded. We get in, we get out, and it's a really good time.
Awesome. So everyone who's watching right now, please subscribe. And you know what? Just be reckless. Give it a good review before you listen. Have some faith. Operate with some belief that these two people could create something worthy of your 5 stars. Awesome. Well, everyone will do that. We posted links for everything they can check out. And thank you so much for spending the time to talk about with us. And very nice to meet you guys.
Of course.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Again, that was Brittany and Mateen from Scumbags of History, a new podcast from Voyage Media and Enthusiast Gaming. You should all check it out. There is a link in the description. I see some people are subscribing. So thank you so much for doing that already. Henry, I guess we'll just stay in the Zoom thing and wrap up here.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much.
See you guys later.
Thanks. Bye.
And just a moment. There's Michael.
Wait, on Discord or Zoom? Which one
You're
am I
on
on
Zoom
now?
right now.
Oh, hey guys, I'm on Zoom. We're gonna wrap up the stream like this. I didn't install Zoom on this newer computer I have. Let's do a little infinite feedback loop. So hey everyone, let's check in with the chat real quick. Let's see. I'm gonna be really weird. Let's see if I can do this. So there's the chat. Seems like everyone's having a great time there. But thanks for hanging out, everyone. Thank you for Brittany and my team for coming through. I think we're gonna wrap it up in this weird way today because we got to go make a video. I think we're gonna try to hang out on Friday to make up for the Monday stream. So please be ready for a case of the Fridays. Thank you so much for liking the stream, for leaving comments, all that stuff. It means a lot to us. Really appreciate it. As always, thank you so much to those of you who have signed up. It's like video chatting with Dad. Hello? Can you help me turn the internet on? But good to see all of you here. Thanks for signing up for Patreon. We'll be back with a video on Friday. Because the last video had such a spicy topic, we're going very mellow. And this Friday's video is on gender and gender ideology and gender theory. So we're trying to get ourselves killed. We're trying to get ourselves killed. So that's coming out. And then I'm about to film a video about comedy and maybe why Americans can't take a joke. Mark, thank you so much. I'm going to go hug all 14 of my dads. Maybe one day Henry and my mom will hit it off and he can be my 15th dad. In the meantime, yep.
What an
thank
honor.
you for hanging out. Give some love to producer Henry. Follow all the things on all the stuff. Find us on Twitter. Try to stay optimistic, guys. Things feel like they're going bad. Things feel like they're just going kind of bad in life right now. And, being nice to each other is cool. Finding stuff we enjoy is cool. And I'll tell you, I was feeling very bad this morning, and hanging out with you guys and chatting, it's really fun. So thanks for that. It's really, really helpful. And I'm officially going to take off, stop taking antidepressants and just rely on you all for my mental health. So thank you so much for that. And we'll see you on Friday. And of course, we'll see you next Wednesday as well. Later, guys.
Hope we alleviated those Wednesdays. See you on Friday, y'all.